It's a home defeat for Bournemouth to Watford, 3-0. A handed scoreline for Nigel Pearson, who continues to do a great job for Watford, having come in halfway through the season. They leapfrog the Cherries, and consequently, it now puts Eddie Howe into probably his most difficult moment as Bournemouth manager since those incredible promotions through to the top division for the first time.
Yeah, he's a man under pressure now. They were booed off at the end, and rightly so. I mean, you can lose games, but when you're losing games at home by 3 clear goals to a side that you're ultimately fighting for survival with, that doesn't tell a very good story about where the mindset is of your team. Eddie Howe had lots of plaudits, and I think rightly so. Bournemouth, as we know, are a tiny little club who've come a hell of a long way. But I get the feeling when he's been linked with, you know, the West Hams and the Evertons and all the jobs he's been linked with in the last 2 to 3 years, whether he's just stayed on there a little bit too long and everything's become a little bit stale now, and the same voice is stale and the players are not listening and they're not getting a reaction. And I think from the owners and chairman's point of view, that's the kind of questions they'll be racking around in their own mind. And I think from Eddie Howe, to be fair, from his point of view as well, I think that'll be what he's asking himself. So I think there's a couple of scenarios here could happen with Bournemouth in the next couple of weeks, to be honest.
It would be extremely harsh on him, given that they were absolutely nothing without him. He was brought in over a decade ago now, and in 2 spells, he's 4 full seasons, got 3 promotions, and then 4 seasons in the Premier League, punching above the weight, and all of that. What would they be if they were to cut ties with him? Are they really strong enough to survive?
Well, no one man is bigger than the club, and I think ultimately, you know, whilst we have some sense of loyalty down there in the South Coast, ultimately the Premier League as the business that it is going to be way more important than any loyalty to Eddie Howe on this occasion. And the reason I said there's a couple of scenarios, because I could see a scenario, bearing in mind, the thought of Eddie Howe losing his job 2 to 3 months ago was pretty much way out there. The thought of that happening now, I think, is particularly strong. The next 3 Premier League games out with the FA Cup, where they have Arsenal, is Norwich City, Brighton Hove Albion, and then Aston Villa, who have just been tonked today, as you know, by Man City. Now, I could see by the time we get to the Brighton game, if they've lost to Norwich, that Brighton game could be pivotal, absolutely pivotal. He might not get to the Aston Villa game because if there's no sign of recovery in the next 2 games, Ross, I think either he will walk and say, I just can't get a reaction anymore from the team. For the best of Bournemouth Football Club, and we know they're very close down there, I'm going to step aside. Or that decision will be made for him. Because I don't think he can go another defeat at Norwich, another defeat against Brighton Hove Albion, and then go into the Villa game. I don't think he'll get that long if he has another 2 defeats. So I think that's how close and how tight it is going to be for him and for them, particularly with the games that they've got. If it would have been Liverpool and City, and you know, you say, well, you know, I don't really expect much out of those anyway, but if we get something, but we're talking about teams that they're expected to get something from and are pretty much fighting against, maybe Brighton apart. If he doesn't get the results then, I think either he walks or the chairman owner is going to have to push him for the sake of the business, because if Bournemouth go, there's no guarantee that great story will return again.
No, certainly not, certainly not.
And it's maybe a little harsh, you know, but it's the world we live in. Unfortunately, it is. He's been there a long time. Nothing lasts forever. They're on the brink. They're not playing well. I think he's got a couple of games max to turn that around. 2 defeats out of the next 3 games against relegation teams that are teams that are in and around. It's not going to go well for him, I don't think.
Let's end on a positive and talk about Nigel Pearson.
Yeah.
What a brilliant appointment it was, given what he'd done for Leicester City previously, much maligned in many ways prior to the title win, which he effectively set the bedrock for by keeping them in the division. It looks like he could well do the same for Watford.
Yeah, he's old school, Nigel, and and I like old school. There's a lot of guys out there that are old school, but he doesn't play the PR card, and you know, he got himself into a little bit of a pickle with some stuff. But that didn't make him a bad manager or a bad guy to play for. He's been around a while. I played against him. big, hard, strong, rugged, no-nonsense defender in his time, and that's what he expects from his players. As you know, I saw Watford firsthand in early December when they were really struggling. They had an interim manager at the time, lost away at Leicester, but were somewhat competitive, and didn't have the worst. They had a lot of injuries, but when you looked at the actual squad, it wasn't as bad as the results were. The results were awful. So Nigel at least has something to work with, and when he gets the other players back, he'll have more to work with. But he's got Deeney fit again. He's got Doucouré playing a little better. He's got Delafeu who can make things happen. He's starting to get defenders back, and he's getting results. So no big surprise that they're starting to look a much better organised side.
Yeah, so a huge 6-pointer goes the way of the Hornets. And as Craig says, a big decision for Jeff Mostyn, chairman at Bournemouth, and also the owner Maxime Demin, to make over the future of Eddie Howe, particularly given the run of fixtures facing an in-trouble Bournemouth coming right up.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube, and for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app, and for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.